For an entire generation, people have experienced Star Wars the only way it's been possible, on the TV screen. But if you've only seen it this way, you haven't seen it at all.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
We've been waiting for you.
Welcome to Coffee with Kenobi. Here are your hosts, Dan Z and Corey Clubb.
Hello, this is Corey Clubb, and welcome to show number 2 of Coffee with Kenobi, a brand new Star Wars podcast that analyzes our favorite saga in a whole new way. With me is my good friend and co-host, Dan Z.
Hello, everybody. It is great to be here with you for show number 2, and we really appreciate everyone's positive feedback regarding our premiere episode. We have had a lot of excellent discussion on Twitter and Facebook, and the responses have been much more than we ever anticipated. A very special thank you to Rob and our friends at the Bearded Trio for featuring us on their great site. We really appreciate it. We also want to thank Jedi News UK for reporting on us as well. Thanks, guys. We love having everyone get the word out. A special thank you to everyone who patiently endured our microphone issues in the middle of our first show.
Yeah, what I thought. Minox.
I think we'll just blame it on Minox and move along.
In today's show, we look at news regarding a brand new Star Wars animated series, Kathleen Kennedy and Celebration Europe, Bird and Episode VII, and we talk about the lineup for Star Wars Weekends 2013. In our collector segment, we discuss the Hasbro Black Series, especially the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. Finally, we will address our topic for today's discussion, your opinions on the Disney-Lucasfilm merger.
A lot has happened in the month since October 3rd, 2012 for that big merger, and we'll break it down in a bit more detail. All of our listeners have sent us great emails, and we will share them, as well as introduce our topic for discussion on show number 3. And now, let's see what's brewing in the Star Wars universe this week.
Well, wait. This is interesting.
You found something.
Production has begun on Star Wars Rebels, an exciting all-new animated TV series based on one of the greatest entertainment franchises of all time. Scheduled to premiere in fall 2014 as a 1-hour special telecast on Disney Channel, it'll be followed by a series on Disney XD channels around the world. The creative team is Simon Kinberg, executive producer of Star Wars Rebels, and writer on the premiere episode. He's joined by Dave Filoni as executive producer. Filoni, who's no stranger to Star Wars fans, has served on Star Wars The Clone Wars since 2008. Executive producer Greg Weisman rounds up the trio. Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy had this to say: "I couldn't be more excited to explore new corners of the Star Wars universe. I think Star Wars Rebels will capture the look, feel, and fun that both kids and their parents love about Star Wars." The action-filled series is set between the events of Episode 3 and Episode 4, an era spanning almost 2 decades never before explored on screen. Star Wars Rebels takes place in a time where the Empire is securing a grip on the galaxy and hunting down the last of the Jedi Knights as a fledgling rebellion against the Empire is taking shape. Details about the show are closely guarded secret at this point. Fans attending Star Wars Celebration Europe will be the first to get an exclusive look at the new series. Casting will be announced at a later date. StarWars.com and Facebook.com/Star Wars Rebels are where you'll find all your official news. So, Star Wars Rebels, I'm excited for it because it opens a gap that really has never been, like I said, expanded on between Episodes 3 and Episodes 4. It's almost, there's a couple, I think there's a couple EUU books out there that deal with that time period. But I think it's just exciting to be able to open up a whole new era, almost, and just explore that.
Oh yeah, there are a lot of books on this. In fact, I'm sure that EU people are probably starting to get a little antsy. However, Filoni's been really good so far, I think, with the EU as far as how he treated the Clone Wars era. But here's the exciting thing about this, Corey, for me, and I've heard other podcasts talking about this already because people are excited. For one thing, Filoni is doing this. That is great because he knows Star Wars. He was trained by Lucas himself, the foot of the master, so he knows what he's talking about. He speaks Star Wars. He's been on it his whole life. Now we've got possibilities here. Here's some possibilities. I don't know if you've thought about this, and actually we haven't even talked about this really because we've been saving this for the show.
Right.
But we don't know what happened to Ahsoka. She's probably still alive. She can show up in Rebels.
I would agree with that. I mean, I haven't finished the whole series, but I think, like you said, anybody could show up from Clone Wars.
It'll be awesome.
But I think it'd be great. But let me ask you this: you think Obi-Wan Kenobi will show up?
I think he has to show up. I would assume that James Arnold Taylor, if he's not already aware of this, He's probably sitting by the phone now in Consetta Park waiting to receive his call because, hello, James Ronald Taylor is ready and available. He's been Obi-Wan for a long time now. He can do that. And I think it's also pretty cool when you think about the fact that they're going to take Ralph McQuarrie's concept art and they're going to model that for the animated style of this show.
Oh, I saw that too, and I think that was excellent. His style was, obviously the first, production pieces as far as, the original Star Wars trilogy. And I think, drawing from that is an excellent way to start everything. It's almost, if you think about it, they're almost going back to the drawing board, literally. But, I think that's an awesome way to do it. I think Dave Filoni is going in the great direction. He's got a great team behind him. I mean, like you said, he knows in and outs of his stuff. I'm excited.
It's pretty cool that Kinberg is actually writing the first episode, too. I mean, I know he wrote that X-Men prequel, which I was not. I think you liked it a little more than I did, but he's obviously a talented writer. Everybody who is in Hollywood seems to be a Star Wars fan or has reverence for it. So it looks great. The only downside is that we have to wait a year, but you know what? If that means quality, we'll take it. Star Wars Weekend's 2013 update. Last show we mentioned the Stormtrooper and Carbon Freeze Me experience, and here's even more taking place starting this weekend. Actually, this is the second week of Star Wars Weekends for Disney's Hollywood Studios. Right now, for Weekend 2, they've got Ray Park, Warwick Davis, and Jim Cummings, who's the voice of Hondo Ohnaka from the Clone Wars. He's also famous to Disney fans for his work as Winnie the Pooh and Tigger. Week 3, the 31st to the 2nd, Warwick Davis, Tim Rose as Admiral Akbar, and then Sam Witwer, the voice of Darth Maul, who is, I would say, Corey and myself's secret wish to have on this show because he would be great at what we're doing. But, we'll see. Then we have Weekend 4, June 7th to the 9th, which is Billy Dee himself, Peter Mayhew, and Tom Kane, who's the voice of Yoda for Star Wars The Clone Wars. And Star Wars Weekends, if you've ever been to Star Wars Weekends, you know what I'm talking about. It's fantastic. When you walk up to the studios, you see stormtroopers on top of the turnstiles waiting for you. They're doing little skits, and you hear sound effects of the Falcon and TIE fighters going by. Characters everywhere, picture opportunities everywhere. Very special merchandise, Star Wars Vinylmations, which I really love. Star Wars Weekends is a terrific thing.
I think that's awesome. I'd love to go to weekends, as much as the celebration. But let me ask you, Dan, you've been to a couple of celebrations. I think you've been to a couple of weekends. What's the difference? I mean, what's the big difference between the two?
Oh, good question. Well, I've actually been to one of each. The difference is just the scope. When you were at Star Wars Weekends, you're still at Disney World. If you go to any other parks at Disney World, you'll never know Star Wars Weekends is going on, but they have all the merchandise, and it's just really cool atmosphere. Star Wars Celebration is just much more of a convention. When you go to Star Wars Weekends, it's much like Disney World was taken over by Lucasfilm, which now that they're synonymous with one another, it's all good.
Brad Bird recently talked about his decision to pass on Episode 7. He explained, the schedule they had in mind made it impossible to do so. He told THR of Disney's rigorous filming schedule to meet the summer 2015 release date. Unless I dropped Tomorrowland, his next feature film, and I was just so deeply into the film at that point. I love Star Wars, and I can't wait to see what JJ does. But it meant I'd have to shut down one dream to participate in another.
Brad Bird is obviously a fan favorite. The Incredibles is one of my favorite animated films, and I loved the work he did on the new Mission Impossible film. But you know what? After seeing Star Trek and just knowing J.J. Abrams' work, I'm okay with the fact that he passed on Episode 7. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. Sounds like he's got a lot going on, and I also agree that Incredibles was an excellent film, and as well as the Mission Impossible. I think he's got his own project going on. I think he's looking out for those things, and I think that's a good direction, so I'm happy with it.
And you know what? Maybe he'll come back around for one of the standalone films or Episodes 8 or 9. Who knows?
Oh, yeah, he's definitely interested, I think, as far as the series goes. He's a big fan, and who wouldn't jump into the opportunity to do something like that?
Han Solo, Rebel Soldier, Lando Calrissian, and Bespin Guard, each sold separately. From Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back Collection, new from Kenner.
Looking? Found someone you have, I would say,
For the first time ever, Hasbro is introducing a 6-inch scale of the greatest characters from the Star Wars universe, and fans will have their very first opportunity to start their Black Series 6-inch figure collection at the San Diego Comic-Con, with the Boba Fett action figure, which comes with a Han Solo and carbonite accessory. Following the convention, A limited number will be available on HasbroToyShop.com.
And I got to tell you, I am really, really excited about the 6-inch figure line. Hasbro's never done a 6-inch figure line. And when I saw that it's, $40, I believe, to get this Boba Fett thing, I looked at the high-res pictures on rebelscum.com, and they look awesome. This is actually something, Corey, where I'm one of those guys, when I buy something, more often than not, I do keep things in the packages. I know that's probably a whole show, but for these, I think I might open these and display them.
So you buy just one or two of each, right? Like one to play with, one to keep in a package.
No, I am not. Even though my haircut may indicate otherwise, I am not independently wealthy. So if I buy something, I just buy one, and rarely do I open something like that. But what do you think about these things?
To me, it's really cool. I like the idea they're making a 6-inch scale, but to me, this is overdone. I mean, I'm not a big collector of any of the action figures or anything like that. I do get my stuff here and there, but I think with Episode 7 coming out, I like to see new stuff they've never come out with yet. Maybe some figurines from this new Rebel cartoon series. That'd be great. But I think this Boba Fett and Han Solo cover night is just overdone.
Really? Did you look at the images?
I did, yeah. They look great. But I've seen it. It's been
That's
done.
Right.
So
I think we'll keep it at let's see where we are. I'm going to say I'm at Coffee with Kenobi Studios East, and you're at Coffee with Kenobi Studios West Side. We'll just keep it on the East Side Studios for now, and you can just rule from a distance. How about that?
Sounds good.
Tune in each fortnight to the IndieCast, the world's #1 Indiana Jones fan podcast.
Trust me.
Featuring the latest news, reviews, and interviews with on-screen and behind-the-scenes talent who help bring to life the greatest adventure movie series ever made. Each episode has the latest from the world of Indiana Jones, as well as interactive segments, trivia, contests, and specials, including radio dramas and music retrospectives. The IndieCast.
It's a transmitter. It's a radio for speaking to God.
Available in iTunes or listen directly at theindycast.com.
If adventure has a name, it must be the IndieCast.
You've taken your first step into a larger world. So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
And now it's time for the discussion feature of our show. We received a lot of feedback on this topic, as it is still very much at the forefront of everyone's collective fandom. The Disney-Lucas merger. What has worked, what hasn't, and what can we expect in the future? Now, when we originally recorded this earlier for show number 1, I don't know how thoughts were. They were a little mixed, but now we've heard from news about Star Wars Rebels, and I think that's probably skewed what people have done. Most of our feedback is from before the announcement, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce some of them to you, and we'll see how they go. It's from Neil Baker, and he said, "Great start, guys. Once you're settled in, I doubt we'll get any of those funky mic issues again, and I hope you're right, my friend. I thought I'd weigh in here with thoughts for next week, as others can add to my comments. I have no qualms about the Disney acquisition of Lucasfilm Limited, if this means we get new films. That said, I'm not a fan of everything Disney does, but their handling of the Marvel franchise has shown that they are able to take a step back a little and let the people who know what they are doing get on with it. At the end of the day, the acquisition was a business deal that will profit their stockholders, nothing more. I also couldn't give a flying Nuna if the EU is abandoned for the new crop of films. I certainly enjoy dipping into the books now and then, but canon can be such a stifling word, and at the risk of raising the wrath of diehard EU fans, I really didn't like the direction most of the post-Return of the Jedi books took anyway. In fact, the only ones I like, possibly my favorite of all the novels, is Tatooine Ghost, simply because it reads like one of the movies. By the way, for what it's worth, here's my saga order of belovedness. Episode 5, Episode 4, Episode 3, a tie between Episode 2 and Episode 6, and then Episode 1. Sacrilegious, I know. Well, thank you, Neil, another friend of ours from the GHG. Thank you very much for your comments. Corey, what do you think about what he said?
Neil's got a good point. I mean, I think that Disney handled Marvel very well, and hopefully, like he said, they'll step back and kind of let the creatives do their job and go to it.
I agree with you. In fact, when this happened, I wrote this letter, an open letter. I put it on GHG, the Geeks Helping Geeks Facebook group that we are a part of, and I read it on the IndieCast. And look, when people complained about Disney purchasing Lucasfilm, every time what I would say, and I'm a teacher, of course, my students would complain. I said, oh, did you like the Avengers? Oh, I love the Avengers. That was a great movie. Well, yeah. Well, do you know who owned Marvel when that happened? Disney. And that worked out pretty well, I believe. Oh, what's the third highest grossing film of all time? So Disney knows enough to stay out of the way when something good is going on. And I know there's going to be a lot of naysayers about the Clone Wars and things like that. And I'm not disagreeing. I wrote letters pleading for the Clone Wars to stay on TV. I did all that stuff too. I was not happy with Disney. But the fact is they hired J.J. Abrams. They're going to have a new animated show going on. They kept Dave Filoni around. It looks like they're trying to keep John Williams around. Disney is a mass marketing machine. They know quality. They know how to get their stuff out there. It's really great. It's really a great thing. We had mentioned this earlier, the whole EU concept. What do you think about if the EU is abandoned, as Neil mentioned?
Well, here's my take on it. The EU is great. It's a great expansion. But just like with Marvel, how they've kind of come in with the comics, there's almost two different worlds, if you want to put it that way. There's a film world and a comic world. And, if they want to use some stuff from the EU, I think that'd be great. But if they don't, that's okay too, because I think there's, like you said, there's almost two worlds in a sense. And I think if they, pick and pull from the EU, it would work out. I think there's going to be people who are upset and everybody's not going to do it the right way. But you can't make a perfect film. You just can't do it. But as far as the EU goes, I think it's up to them. And like you said, hopefully they handle it well.
And I like how you said that. When you mention worlds, we're both comic book fans. I'm sure a lot of people listening to this podcast are as well. When you look at DC and their 52 and their new 52, they're finally coming out with the Flashpoint animated series, or animated film, I should say, not the series. There are absolutely two worlds, and that is exactly the reason why every time a new Harry Potter film came out, I did not reread the book before I went and saw the movie, because I know that I would go crazy. And it's the same thing. You mentioned comics. It's a perfect example. The Batman films, I love Batman. He's probably my favorite hero next to Superman. And whenever I go see the Dark Knight films, I don't worry that they're exactly like Year One by Frank Miller or anything by Neil Adams or anything like that. What I care about is that they're true to the character, that they're accurate to the character. So I'm not completely hung up on the EU. I'm not anti-EU. I like the EU fine. But to me, George Lucas had an outline and a vision for these sequels to Return of the Jedi. So if this is what he wants to do, if he borrows from the EU, that's fine. But you know what? This is his world, and I'm happy to be living in it. Our second email is from Kyan Royalty, a former student of mine, and great to hear from you, by the way, Kyan. And he writes, "Hello, I just heard the first episode of Coffee with Kenobi, and I gotta say, I'm impressed. As I'm sitting here listening to it, I can't help smiling and having a good time as I'm listening to you guys talk about your experiences and opinions. I will admit, I am that big EU guy that you referred to, especially in regards to the novel. Most of my bookshelf is devoted entirely to Star Wars novels. I love everything Timothy Zahn did, and I want to recommend also the works of Drew Karpyshyn. Is it Karpyshyn? Karpyshyn? I'm not sure. I apologize, Drew. He is relatively new to the novel scene, but has extensive experience as a writer of video games. He packs a punch and delivers exciting stories that you can immerse yourself in and enjoy. His best works, in my opinions, are the novels that make up the Darth Bane trilogy. Anyways, on to business. And here's where he gets into our topic. You asked, what is our opinion on Disney acquiring Lucasfilm? I was shocked when I heard that Disney had bought out Lucasfilm. I definitely did not see it coming. I can't say that I'm a very big fan of Disney owning Star Wars. I agree they did a very good job with Marvel and Pirates of the Caribbean, among other films, but it just doesn't seem like it will be quite the same. I know Lucas is staying on board as a creative consultant, but I don't think that it will be quite the same without him at the head. I'm also wary of J.J. Abrams being the director. I think he is a very good director, has done a spectacular job with Lost and Star Trek and his other films and TV shows, but again, I can't really explain it, but I'm kind of wary about it. Can one man really direct both a Star Trek and Star Wars movie? Will he overcome the timeless conflicts between the two universes? We'll find out. I hadn't heard that John Williams was directing the score as well, and that really excited me. For me, it's important for Williams to be directing the score. Again, without him, it just wouldn't feel right. As far as the concept of a seventh film goes, I'm excited. As a lifelong fan of Star Wars, I am always excited to hear when something new is coming out. I think that it will work especially well if they put in the right time period. I've heard news of all three of the original trio, Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher, being in a new movie. This raises the question, how do they deal with the whole aging issue? I think if they'll put a film in the new Jedi Order era, then the characters will be around the age of the actors anyway, and story would be more focused on their children. Of course, with CGI, these days, that can easily be overcome as well. I'd also be excited to see a Thrawn film. Overall, I'm very excited for Episode 7 and can't wait to see it. I really hope it does well. I'm anxiously looking forward to your next and future episodes. I can't wait to hear them. May the Force always be with you, Kyan. Well, Kyan, thank you very much for that. He actually brought up so many points that I was hoping that somebody would talk about. For me personally, I want to talk about this Star Trek, Star Wars thing. And good news, fans, we are going to do a special episode where we talk about the new Star Trek film in relationship to J.J. Abrams, since he is such a big part of Episode 7. But the Star Wars, Star Trek rivalry, really?
It's time to put this thing to rest. And, as much as I am a Star Wars fan, I do enjoy, my Star Trek once in a while. But I will say that, with the original J.J. Abrams reboot that he did, it did get me in the Star Trek a little bit. I liked it. But as far as the two groups, I think we need to just kind of bury the hatchet and just go on from there.
Another thing I want to bring up that Kyan mentioned is he talks about people being nervous that Lucas isn't there. And I know he's not necessarily in this camp, but I find this so incredibly ironic. Do you know, what is it? The Phantom Menace came out in 1999. All we've heard about since 1999 is how terrible Lucas is, and he's bad at writing scripts, and he's ruining the Star Wars franchise, and he's not being a good caregiver of our beloved franchise, and all this kind of stuff. And then as soon as he's on the outs, everyone acts like he's Shakespeare.
I haven't read too much stuff on that, but I think it was a hard decision for Lucas to make that, buyout to Disney, as we talked about before. And I think it's his baby. It's his thing. Any movie that filmmakers make, I think it's their thing. It's their baby. They're the ones that came up with the idea. They're the ones that came up with everything. And it still is his baby. He's still going to have a part in it, whether we like it or not. We have no control over that. And
really, who wants to? And besides, let's think about the fact that it's still his vision. It's still his focus. And he is not the greatest scriptwriter ever. That is not news. And he would say that himself. He hated writing the scripts. He loved coming up with the ideas and the story arcs and everything like that. But that was not his thing. His idea was the vision. And now we've got, an Oscar-winning screenwriter, Michael Arndt, writing the script. We've got J.J. Abrams, who is a fantastic storyteller, who knows how to direct a film with pacing and special effects and chemistry. We've got the best of both worlds. We need to drink this up and enjoy it.
I agree. And, like I said, bringing on John Williams for the music and Harrison Ford and all the others, the classic characters, that alone is almost enough. But, as fans, we just tend to just pick apart every little person, the screenwriters, the directors, the extras, who's making the costumes. People are getting thrown up over all this stuff. It's like, seriously, come on. We're getting new films out of all of this. That's more than we could ever ask for.
That actually is an excellent segue into our third email, which is from Corey Wara, another student of mine from Britlit. Hello, Corey. Great to hear from you, my friend. And Corey writes, first off, great podcast. It was a very nice introduction, and I look forward to the next. Now, about that Disney-Lucas buyout. I have mixed feelings about it. Disney is a very interesting company, but I worry that they are going to delude the series. I'll be a lot happier if they made the next trilogy, and that's it. But the recent talk about spin-offs has me worried. I'm a film student, so I know the studio values money over the art of films. I think that if you keep pumping out movie after movie, people will get bored, tired of the franchise. Then, when that happens, Disney would pull the plug on all Star Wars movies and call it a day and move on until they see value in the name again. Now, I know the same can be said of Disney's take on Marvel, but I have a feeling after Avengers 2, things are going to go downhill, but we'll find out in a couple of years on that one. But I'm not completely against Disney. I'm also happy that J.J. Abrams is directing because he has such an uncanny ability to make great films. He took Star Trek, a very niche show, and brought it to a wider audience. He has a good balance of mystery and story. Also, his cinematography is just fantastic. In regards to the spin-offs, I would be curious to see if Disney would ever consider releasing an R-rated Star Wars film. Imagine a dark, gritty film about being a bounty hunter and what that means, or a Jedi fighting off the call of the dark side. I know it will never happen, but the possibilities seem fun. So I guess that, to sum everything up, I'm worried but hopeful. Disney is a company at the end of the day, which means they need money, and in pursuit of that money, it could hurt the Star Wars name. And thank you again, Corey, for that excellent email. He also brings up some things. It's just like when I have everybody in class and we're all sitting around, these things come up through this discussion. And what's the thing that stood out for you about what he just said?
Obviously, he's very nervous, which is rightly so. Everybody's nervous about what's going to happen because, it's like I said, we own this series, and we just are so meticulous about what's going to happen. But because we care so much about it, and obviously, like I said, that's what Lucas is feeling about that too, I think. And as far as doing like those offshoot films, it is kind of a bumpy road. But, it's all there, and they're going to do what they want kind of with it. And, we're just going to have to see what comes out of it. As far as, the Marvel movies go, after Avengers 2, it might go downhill. I don't know. It's a little flooded right now in the market as far as it goes.
There is. But a lot of people... I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, I just think that, like he said, he had some good comments, but, the Marvel movies are great, and after all those are kind of said and done, will they just go on forever? I don't know. But, as far as Star Wars films, will they go on forever? We'd love to see that, but would we? I don't know. Some is oversaturated a little bit sometimes. And as far as, doing the R-rated movie or, something like that, maybe that's a different venue as far as, an HBO series or something. I don't know if that's all of a film, but films for Star Wars is almost... It has to do with, merchandising and has to do with, all different, age brackets. And I think they try to do that with every Star Wars film because it's such a franchise for that age group. So, doing an R-rated movie, I just don't think it's going to work.
I love that you mentioned the whole HBO concept, like a miniseries, sort of like a Star Wars Game of Thrones thing. I can't imagine that's going to happen, especially with Disney piloting the franchise. I don't want to see an R-rated Star Wars film for the reasons you mentioned. It's a family thing. Even, Revenge of the Sith was very edgy. It was PG-13, had some very disturbing images for children. Yeah, very dark. And I don't think that's the route they want to do, at least at this point. There is, of course, all those scripts out there for the alleged TV show, which we may or may not ever see. So that may be where you get your fix there. Oversaturation is something I knew we were going to talk about. A lot of people are nervous about this, and I also want to throw this out there too, just to be devil's advocate. Were you worried about oversaturation when we're going to get Star Wars detours? Or how about all the Family Guy spoofs? Or all the Robot Chicken things? I'm not saying those things are bad things, but here's the thing. We were not getting any Star Wars movies. We're getting a lot of parodies, not giving the saga the reverence that it deserves. I'm not saying it's a sacrosanct thing, but I am saying we're getting Star Wars movies in the theater. We get that experience and all the merchandising and all the toys and all the posters and all the art and all the conventions and all the things that come into that. The movies are what brought all the Star Wars fans together. We're getting at least 5 of them. Now, it wouldn't hurt my feelings if they stuck to the original kind of design and we got a new one every 3 years. That would be cool. I actually would prefer that. But you know what? If I get a new Star Wars movie every summer, I think I'm okay with that. that's amazing. Are you kidding me? We're getting new Star Wars films. How can anybody debate this?
I agree with you to an extent. Because, a Star Wars movie every single year, after the next trilogy's done, we'll have a Han Solo movie, talk about doing a Boba Fett movie. And there's so much you can do, but also it's like, how far do you go? Same thing with Marvel. How far do you go after the Avengers? Do you start doing West Coast Avengers? Do you start doing Great Lake Avengers? It's just like you can take it so far, then all of a sudden somebody messes up a franchise or a character, and somebody just obviously is an uproar, and then they say, well, should we make more movies? I don't know. And I don't know. I agree with that. I love that there's new movies coming out, and maybe for the next 10 years. And it's a long time, but like you said, I don't know. It has its downside too.
Well, Corey Wara, I certainly agree with you about Avengers 2 and oversaturation, I suppose. I'm still a quality over quantity person. To be honest, I'm sort of a book snob when it comes down to it. And just because there's a movie out there that has a superhero in it, I don't instantly love it. In fact, I think I'm more critical of those things because I know what quality I expect. Star Trek fans, we talked about Star Trek, they'll tell you that the odd-numbered films are terrible, and they love the even-numbered films. We want quality. Hello, Return of the Jedi, The Phantom Menace, movies that I love and adore and cherish. But a lot of people critique them, so no one is saying put out junk, put out quality, just get stuff out there, forget the art. But they are saying we're going to see Star Wars in the theater. So until we see that it's terrible, why don't we just enjoy it and see what happens?
Echo 3 to Echo 7. Hano, buddy, do you read me?
I saw part of the message.
I seem to have found it.
Our first email is from Casey Vach. It was on our website, coffeewithkenobi.com, and he wrote, "Can't wait to hear this. Hope this is a big success. I know how big a podcast can be. May the force be with you." Well, thank you very much, Casey. We're very excited that you are paying attention to our show and listening to it and following along, and I really appreciate your enthusiasm in the classroom as well as here for our show.
Our next comment comes from Jason Heipel. He says, when is the show and how can I listen? May the 4th is an unofficial Star Wars Day created by fans. It annoys me that the Star Wars Facebook page is officializing its word on it. Discuss. I loved Han Solo, but I think it would be great if they see him killed off in Episode 7 in some grand sacrificial way. Like crashing the Falcon to a bad guy to save the world. Discuss. Man, that's a great idea, Jason. And as far as Star Wars, the Star Wars Facebook page officializing May the 4th, I think that's a good thing. I enjoy that. I'm glad that's being promoted. For Episode 7 and Han Solo, we'll have to wait and see what J.J. Abrams does. We never know. It's up in the air right now.
I agree. I love how Star Wars is making May the 4th semi-official because it makes it official. It gets it more attention. We get a little bit of merchandise. It makes more buzz for the community, which I love. And Han Solo dying in Episode 7, famously Ford wanted that to happen in Return of the Jedi, and I actually think it would have added some power to the narrative. It also forces Luke to kind of go on his own and branch off when all of his father figures or brother mentors are not with him. However, George Lucas wanted to sell more Han Solo action figures, and here we are. I don't think that's going to make much of a difference as far as selling Han Solo action figures. He's Han Solo, and he's awesome. So that'll be fun. Crashing the Falcon to a bag of that would be fun, too. So, Jason, thank you much for your email and your message, and we hope you enjoy the show. Our next message is from James Howell of GHG. I finally got around to listening to your podcast. Loved it. I'm very interested to hear your discussion about Darth Plagueis, as I've always found him interesting. I even wrote a fan fiction screenplay about him years ago. Since I first did it, it was considered canon to me. It's not particularly good, but it gives a different take on the character than the book. And James, honestly, I looked at some of it. I haven't gotten a chance to read it all yet, but it's pretty cool. In fact, if you want to look at it, everybody, go ahead and look at our Facebook page and check out James's post. He's got a link to that actual fan fiction that he created.
Our next comment comes from Tommy Mack, another guy from GHG. Tommy says, my hope would be that he would revamp and rethink Star Wars collectible market and stop producing the same stuff over and over and over, and go for a more modest approach, making quality collectibles instead of flooding the market with cheap crap. But then again, yeah, it's Disney. Well, Tommy, I think the big thing about Disney is merchandising. Same thing with Star Wars. It's a big merchandising atmosphere, and I think that they'll be a big part of what they do with Episode 7 and what they have to do. But hopefully, make some great new characters and new toys for collectors, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think there's going to be quite a mix of quality as well as quantity. That's just what Disney does. That's what everybody does. I mean, you've got different kinds of collectors. You've got just kids who like to play with everything. You've got the professionals, if you want to say. I don't know if they're professionals, they're not making money for this, but they're the ones who buy the really expensive stuff. And some people just like to dabble with whatever their favorite thing is. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Disney does with all this kind of Star Wars excitement for Episode 7, for Star Wars Rebels, and who knows. Our next comment on our Facebook page came from Ryan Cook, another student of mine. Hello, Ryan. And Ryan writes, can't wait for more. It's too bad EA bought LucasArts. Hopefully they can make a good Star Wars video game. And if you want to see a guy who knows his stuff about Star Wars, maybe have as a guest, this would be sweet. He has tons of toys and stuff. Ryan sends a link to a YouTube gentleman who has a collectibles show of Star Wars, and he shows you different action figures and collectibles and kind of evaluates them and rates them, and he's a lot of fun, so check out the link on our show notes for that. And as far as the EA thing, I read a rumor today that there is possibly going to be something at the next electronic show that Star Wars Battlefront 3 could be coming out. That could be pretty awesome, and I think that would change a lot of people's minds on EA buying LucasArts.
As far as Battlefront 3, I think it's a good to go. As far as I know, they've got a lot of it completed. Same thing with was it level 1313? I think they had a lot of that completed as well. Hopefully, we'll see those games in the future. We love hearing from our friends at GHG, and our next one comes from Rebecca Benjamin. She says, "Geez, there's a lot of questions/thoughts just buzzing around out here, especially surrounding this upcoming Star Wars Episode 7. It's been slated that Disney and J.J. Abrams will probably not stay true to the EU/timeline, etc. Obviously, we don't know if this is true until the movie is completed and we're up for the viewing. I'm not expecting too much. Trying being the operative word there. Still, it'd be thrilling to see Leia come full circle with her destiny as a Jedi. To see her wield a lightsaber would be purely fun-tastic. Also, I would love to see Anakin's Force Ghost appear to the twins as Ben had to Luke in episodes 4, 5, and 6. Oh, and would R2 and 3PO make a comeback? Possibly stumble upon some of R2's old recordings. Hey, you asked. I delivered. LOL. Sort of.
She also goes on to say, exactly. Basically, to clear things up, I'm not being a hater, just a realist. Disney has done some great things, and hopefully, where Star Wars is concerned, that will continue. That said, I do not want to see things like, for example, Disney princess dolls dressed in slave Leia garb for marketing. My reason? Well, for starters, Leia did not wear that outfit by choice. She was forced to. It was meant as a mockery and to embarrass her. It was to strip her from all that she stood for and was fighting for. This is not the image to market to young girls who dream of being a Disney princess. And that actually opens up a terrific conversation for an entire show, really, about sexism possibly in the Star Wars universe and the objectification of women and things like that. And, of course, Slave Leia is incredibly famous for all kinds of reasons. But this is a really, really strong point that Rebecca has made. And it's actually a part of something that Tommy Mack from GHG mentioned, too. Again, we encourage you to go to our Facebook page and check out the link on that. Join in the discussion because they really come up with some great things.
I agree. Rebecca's got some great questions here. I'd love to see Anakin reappear to the twins if that's a possibility. Also, stumbling across some of R2's old recordings, that's a total possibility. I mean, why not live that back up? That's a great way to put it.
I'm sure if you've been paying attention to Merida from Brave and her being a Disney princess, the most recent one, they really kind of sexed her up, so to speak, and a lot of people got really, really upset about that. So the Disney Princess brand has been under a bit of a microscope lately. So this message is really timely. Our topic for show number 3 involves attachments in the Jedi Order. What draws Vader to the dark side? Why can Jedi not have attachments? Is this the main flaw that leads to their downfall? This is something that's been bothering me for a long time. It was explored a lot in the films. It was explored quite a bit in the Clone Wars. It always comes up with Anakin, particularly when it comes to discipline for Anakin. It comes up famously at the end of Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, when Anakin has to decide, should he go and save Padme, or should he stay with Obi-Wan and try to stop Dooku? It comes up all the time in the Clone Wars. It comes up in Episode 3. It comes up in all the films, as we know. But the whole thing with attachments has always bothered me as a flaw. And why do the Jedi not see that? This is a topic rich for discussion, and we cannot wait to see what you have. Please email us with your comments or questions on attachments and how it involves the Jedi Order, and we will definitely discuss them on show number 3.
I like the sound of that.
If you would like to respond to our question of the show, have a comment, or just want to say hello, send us an email at feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com. Or if you have a specific question or comment for either of us individually, email us at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com or coryc@coffeewithkenobi.com, or visit us at coffeewithkenobi.com and click on the comment section. If you enjoy the show, please write a review in iTunes. You can also like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi, as well as keep up to date at our Twitter feed at twitter.com/coffeewithkenobi. If you enjoyed the jazz music, download the album Eye to Eye by Steve Torok on iTunes.
Give the evacuation code signal.
That's it for show number 2 of Coffee with Kenobi. Thanks to everyone who contributed to this week's show and to all of you out there who listen to our show. Special thank you to our friends at GHG for their friendship, insights, and participation that helped to make this show possible. Don't forget to send us your comments and opinions on the topic for show number 3. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited and is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names and sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney or their respective trademarks and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
There's no one here. Move along.